What up, folks? What it do? Welcome to the Best Advice Ever podcast with comedian Mike Goodwin. That's me, the Bowtie comedian. Now, I am Bowtie-less, and I probably will be Bowtie-less through the bulk of these episodes, but it's still me. It's just me sans the Bowtie. Now, you may be wondering, Mike, well, what do you have us here for? And I just told you, this is for the Best Advice Ever podcast. So I just wanted to first thank you for joining and being a part of my community. One thing I wanted to do as I looked at the different things that I could provide for the audience is what's something that can be a median between my online social media posts and the live shows. There wasn't anything that kind of was in the middle. Like if folks wanted to see me more regularly, they really couldn't. And you could watch clips and videos. So I decided to start a new podcast. And that's where we are here. And so in this podcast, you may say, well, Mike, what are you going to be talking about? I'm glad you asked, because what I will be sharing is insights from funny, family, faith, maybe even fashion. I think that's important too. You know, I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm a grown man. You know, in some cases, people would say a grown man. So I want to share some of the insights that I've gained just by being here on the earth. And so this is a podcast that will be highly focused on the funny. One of the main reasons I thought about doing a podcast is shout out to some of my comedic friends who have gone on and transitioned out of this life. Two in particular I can think of, a guy by the name of Joe Recker, another guy by the name of Spanky Brown. So early in my career, it wasn't uncommon for me to have long road trips. You know, there were times where I would have to drive to gigs that were maybe 3-4 hours away. And I would always have the ability to call Joe or Spanky. And I knew without a shadow of a doubt, number one, they would be available because they were comedians. So they were always able to answer the phone. And then the other thing, they would guarantee give you an hour. Joe would give you an hour just off GP. Like Joe would give you an hour just regularly. So that was always a way to help me make a long trip much shorter. And so that's what I want to do with this podcast. I want you, if you're commuting, if you're driving, if you're in the car often, I want this podcast to be one of the things that you can turn to say, hey, man, I got a pretty long trip. Let's try to make this trip a little bit more shorter and a little bit more enjoyable. And so that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to create this. And the other thing, I think I have some interesting ways of looking at life and the way I see things and how I process. So I want to help you in your daily experience, man. You might be a person that has to do cardio. You say, hey, I'm trying to keep the pounds down, so I got to get up on the Stairmaster and at least do 20 minutes a day. Well, I'm going to help you make that 20 minutes a little bit more enjoyable. I hate doing it. That's why I watch an episode of The Handmaid's Tale. I should do a podcast on The Handmaid's Tale because it's the most ridiculous, insane, insightful, incredible series I've ever watched that I probably wouldn't have never watched. I just looked one day at Hulu and was like, hey, man, let's take a shot. Let's see what's going over here with this lady in this red dress in this white bonnet on her head. I don't even know what they call wings. They have them on the show. And I like the girl. She was on Mad Men. So I liked her on there. I know no actresses' names. None. Maybe black actresses. I may know their names. But I know no actresses' names. I just know them as their role on their episode. And so this is June. I forgot June's last name, but June, which is also known as Alford, because they give them some weird like Quaker names, but that's I'm not gonna get too much into the show. But I'll put an episode of the Handsman Take, especially on flights. I'll download. You know, I'm not the kind of guy that's gonna be able to do. I'm amazed at people. There's two types of people I'm amazed at on the flights. I'm amazed at the person that sits there and does nothing. That person is amazing to me. Like, we have a 5-hour flight. I sat by this dude recently. He just sat there and looked at the back of the seat in front of him. He didn't have any earphones on. He didn't get up and go to the bathroom. I'm like, this man's a serial killer. I know it. I wish I had some information to turn him into the authorities, because he sat right there like he was a little kid in nursery school and just sat in his seat. He didn't look at the television. He didn't read a book. He didn't do Sudoku puzzles or Sudoku. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but so those people really intrigue me, just to sit there. So I'm not that person. If I'm just sitting there on a flight, I'm asleep. Or I'm trying to figure out a way to ask my seatmate to move because I gotta go to the bathroom. That's the only reason I sit and kind of like do nothing on a plane. The other person that really is amazing to me is the person that's actually getting work done. Like, the person has up spreadsheets and Excel, and they punching the keyboards popping, click, 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 clack, clack. I can't. I don't have the attention span. I mean, maybe my work's a little different, so I'm just not going to sit there and write jokes on the whole flight and listen to comedy shows and review footage. So, but the people that's like doing invoices and, you know, even I could get like their teachers sometimes that are like grading papers and professors sometimes. I get that. Like, you can read papers, but the folks that's like, they got the wireless internet up and they are getting to it. They are going through emails and they are clacking those keyboard keys. Man, I'm envious because I wish I had the desire to do that. When I get on the flight, I just want to watch stuff. I just want to veg out. I just want to chill because I know my day is going to be pretty demanding. So I think I use those times as like halftime when I'm on a flight, man. I'm like, because once I get to the airport, I got to get a rental car. I got to get on the road. Like, it's game time. So I prefer to be on the flight chilling. I don't even know how I started talking about that, but that hopefully will give you some insight on the type of guy that I am. But no, I really, again, thank you for being a part of this podcast. And I'm excited about the future of it. So we're going to grow this thing. I'm going to do weekly episodes. We're doing every Wednesday. We'll drop a new episode of the Best Advice Ever podcast. Not only will I be here, I will have guests. I will invite some of my dopest friends or people that I think is dope, and I'll invite them, and we'll have a great conversation. And I also want you to send in questions. I want you to say, hey, Bowtie, I have a question that I would love for you to answer. So I will have a Ask the Bowtie segment. I will have a What You're Not Gonna Do segment also. I find stories in the USA Today typically that are pretty bizarre, interesting stories. So I'll talk about that, or just regular things from pop culture. I'll talk about in episodes. We'll have the Ask the Bowtie segment. We'll have the What You're Not Gonna Do segment. And we'll even discuss some fashion. Now, I'm not a fashion expert by any stretch of the imagination, but what does happen, typically when I'm out, I will have one of two things happen. I will have a guy that would say, hey, man, I would love to go shopping with you. The way you put that together, you pull that off, man, that looks really good. So for that person that often says, man, I would love for you, take me to the store and help me pick out some things. I'll provide some tidbits for that person. Or the second person that I often have is that person's spouse or girlfriend will come to me and say, oh man, I really like your sense of style. I wish my husband or my boyfriend would dress like that. So ladies, I have you covered. So I can give you some information, some tips. Because again, my style has evolved over years. I'm grown. I've been here for a long time. And I'm one of these guys that's like, I'm not going to rest. I'm not going to take a knee in life, right? I'm going to run the clock all the way out. I'm running plays to the clock expires. So what I typically see with guys, especially, guys typically dress for the rest of their life in their best decade. So if you were killing it in college in the 90s and you're now 42, 43, you're dressing back when you were on the yard, back when you were in college. So you have these jeans that they look like waterfalls. They start in and then they go wide. That's not what people are wearing nowadays. I heard somebody say this one time. He said, that's fashionable, but it's not in fashion. There's a lot of people, they're fashionable. They're not in fashion. For instance, it's like seeing a Saab on the highway. Like a Saab's a great car in the 90s, in the early 2000s. But to see a Saab in 2022, is out of place. You like, why does that guy have on a vest with no shirt? Like, that's the way we dressed back in the day. We had like the R&B. There was an R&B phase. I probably need to go through my phases of dress. That might be a great episode. But I will provide some insight because, again, I've done the things. I've hired a stylist. I've looked at my wardrobe. I even had like a wardrobe crisis because I think I've dressed myself because, I was doing custom suits, custom shirts. Where do you go after that? Like I did up until that point, it was like, oh, I have nowhere else to go. And I realized one day I didn't have any casual clothes. My idea of casual was to take off my tie. That's not casual. You can't wear that to the ballpark. You can, but you look like the crazy man. You look like you are a politician. You look like you are leaving your law offices and went by and see your boy play T-ball at the park. I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted to have some range in my fashion. So we'll talk about those things. So again, thank y'all so much. It's gonna be a great time. I am, again, comedian Mike Goodwin, the host for the Best Advice Ever podcast. And the last segment, and I may not do it every time, but I'll also provide you with some of the worst advice ever that I've received. And hopefully you'll find this podcast to not also be just entertaining, but educational. So when we're talking about the stuff, we're going to talk about how to navigate through holidays with family. We're going to talk about the things that are common to all of us. And I will give you some sage advice. I'm a guy that's on up the road a little further than folks. And even if I'm not that far up the road further than you, I've done a lot of information, a lot of research, been around a lot of folks, collected a lot of data. So I'm excited to share all of this information on the podcast. So what you're not going to do is not subscribe, like, review, all the things. Like, I need you to do the things. I would love for you to go. If you're not following me on social media, please find me. I'm most active on Instagram and Facebook. So on Instagram, I'm at Bowtie Comedy. On Facebook, I'm at Comedian Mike Goodwin. But I'm also on YouTube. I have an address on Twitter. I don't really go over there like that. And people over there, they're very angry. It's very angry people over there. So this is not what you'll receive from this podcast. I'm not angry. I used to be angry, so I'll tell you even how I made it out of the anger. I used to be really, really angry. I'm not an angry dude anymore. I'm a very happy guy. I'm a very peaceful, genteel, domesticated thug. No, I'm not thug. But I will give you information on how to even navigate being angry. If you just out here hot at the world, you just got the shortest little fuse, man. I'm gonna help you out. I'm gonna help you extend your fuse. Well, I think that's the end of this episode. This is just the intro. I just wanted to invite you out to my weekly podcast episode. Every Wednesday we'll drop it on Hump Day. Hump Day, get you through the week. Hump Day Wednesday. I think I did that because that commercial, Mike. But really, Wednesday's a good day. Like you've made it through the first part of the week. The weekend is out on the horizon. I want to give you a little rocket fuel to get there to the end. So every Wednesday, we'll be dropping an episode. And I look forward to seeing you each Wednesday on the Best Advice Ever podcast. It's your boy, Mike Goodwin. Peace.